In a small corner of Ibadan, where the sun rises slow over rusted rooftops and the scent of pepper clings to morning air, a girl named Simi woke before dawn. She was her mother's only child, the daughter of a pepper seller and a taxi driver who had grown too tired to dream. But Simi's dreams were wild and loud. They spilled out of her small shared room like market songs. Every evening, she sat by the radio in their cramped parlor, listening to tales of Lagos, Nollywood stars with gowns that sparkled. Stories of actresses whose names rolled off tongues like prayer. Her mother would say, "Simi o, come and help me cut these peppers. This your dream, eh? Be careful, not all that shines is yours to carry." But Simi only smiled, her eyes fixed on the flickering TV they rented from the neighbor. "Mama, one day I would be on that screen. I would be the one they clap for." On the day she turned 20, Simi tied her headscarf tighter than ever before, folded her only good dress into a small nylon bag, and told her mother she was going to Lagos for an audition. Her father didn't say goodbye. He only shook his head and spat into the dusty yard, but her mother pressed 2 notes into her hand. "For transport and for courage," she said. At the bus park, Simi sat beside a window, staring out at the long road ahead, Ibadan's red heads giving away to Lagos' restless streets. And as the old bus rattled past slow-moving trucks and roadside hawkers, Simi whispered to herself, I will climb, even if my feet bleed, I will climb." The bus rolled into Lagos just as the sun began to press its heat into the roofs and the back of tired men. By the time Simi stepped off at Ojota, her blouse clung to her skin and her small bag felt heavier than when she left home. She had never seen so many people moving in so many directions at once. Buses squeezing through gaps too small, hawkers knocking on windows with cold drinks and plantain chips. She clutched her bag tighter, heart racing each time someone brushed past her too quickly. The address on the folded paper in her pocket led her to a small hostel in Surulere. It was nothing fancy, just a narrow building painted in faded blue, with the smell of kerosene and old cooking oil drifting through the cracked windows. But the caretaker, an old man with one eye cloudy from age, took her money without fuss and handed her a key that barely turned in the lock. Inside her new room, Simi dropped her bag on the floor, sat on the bed and let herself breathe. She stayed like that for a long time, listening to the faint hum of traffic and her own heartbeat settling down. By morning, she was up before the landlord's rooster found its voice. She tied her scarf neatly, put on the same blouse, and found her way to the audition hall on the mainland, a peeling building behind a row of shops, half hidden by old posters of movies Simi had watched 100 times. The gate was crowded with girls, some chatting in loud, confident bursts, others scrolling through their phones, pretending not to care. Simi felt the weight of her cheap sandals, the worn edges of her bag. She stood near the wall, trying to blend in, clutching the paper that said, "Open casting, female, 18 to 25, any experience." She kept her eyes on the gate, but it was the girls who found her first. 3 of them, The first one, Sade, wore tight jeans and red lipstick that didn't quite sit on her mouth. She looked Simi up and down, the way Lagos girls do when they want to see what you are hiding. The second, Fumi, was shorter, her wig slightly off center, but her eyes sharp like a cat's, catching every detail, every weakness. The third, Lara, didn't say much. She just stood behind the other two, chewing gum like it was a secret only she knew. First audition? Sade asked, her voice sugar and pepper at once. Simi nodded. Sade laughed slowly. You look like it, but don't worry, we were once like you. Sade stepped forward, looped her arm around Simi's like they were old friends. You want to be seen? You have to stand in front, not behind. Simi opened her mouth, but the girls were already pulling her closer to the gate, past other girls who rolled their eyes but didn't protest. Inside the dusty compound, a man with a clipboard backed names. Girls giggled. Some slipped him small envelopes when they thought no one was looking. Simi watched, eyes wide. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. Funke leaned in, whispered in her ear, Don't worry. When they ask you, say you know us. We will help you. Simi wanted to know why, but her mouth was dry and the line was moving. When they reached the front, Sade squeezed her hand once. Small, small, she said, smiling. You thank us later. And as Simi stepped into that warm, still audition hall, walls covered in faded red curtains, she told herself, whatever it takes, just once, just one chance. Outside the door, the girls waited, smiling, watching. The first role Simi ever got didn't come with bright lights or a camera pointed at her face. It came with a single line, 3 words she practiced all night in front of the cracked mirror in her hostel room. Madame is here. She played the maid who opened the gate for the big actress. Just 3 words, but she said them with her heart as if her whole future depended on it. When she stepped out of the stuffy makeup room into the small crowded set, she tried not to stare at the real actors, the woman in a sparkling gown who kept checking her phone, the man who barked at the cameraman when his coffee wasn't sweet enough. Simi stood in her corner, apron tied tight, heart drumming. Sade winked at her from the side. Funke gave her a small nod. Lara didn't say anything, just scrolled on her phone. When the director called action, Simi stepped forward, knocked on the fake gate and spoke her line. Her voice trembled a little, but no one shouted, no one laughed. The director barely looked at her, just waved his hands and called the next scene. It was over in less than 5 minutes. That night, back at the hostel, Simi laid on her thin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan that barely worked. The city noise slipped in through the cracked windows, horns, shouts, a baby crying in the next room. But under it all, she heard only her own voice in her head, repeating the line she had said over and over. Madame is here. It felt small, too small for the big dreams she carried, but it was something. The next week, the girls dragged her to another audition. This one was tougher. The gate was crowded, the air hot with so many bodies pressed together. Simi felt sweat pool at the back of her neck as she waited. A man with a gold tooth and sunglasses shouted at the line to keep quiet. Shade slipped him a small envelope when he got close. He smiled at her, ignoring the rest. Inside, the waiting room was cramped and smelled of cheap perfume and nervous sweat. Some girls practiced lines out loud, others just sat, fixing their makeup, eyes darting around to see who would get notice. Shade leaned close, whispering, "If they like you, they will call you for extra. Just laugh at their jokes. Smile. Don't be forming shy." Simi nodded, her mouth dry again. She tried to do what Shade said, laugh when the fat producer made a joke about her height, smile when his hand brushed her shoulder too long. When she came out, Funke grabbed her hand. "You see, small, small. It is who you know. That's how you grow." For weeks, it went like that. An audition here, a crowd there. Sometimes she got the line, sometimes just a crowd scene. Her face buried somewhere behind the real stars. She didn't mind at first. Each time, she told herself, this is better than selling peppers. But at night, when she lay down alone in her room, Simi began to feel the cost. Shade would push her to come out to parties after audition, rich men birthdays, backyards with swimming pool and loud music. Producers like face they've seen before, Lara told her one night, fixing Bissie's makeup in a stranger's bathroom. "You have to show up so they remember you," Funke added, handing her a cheap drink she couldn't name. Sometimes Simi wanted to say no, but she would see the posters on the walls, the famous faces she wanted to stand beside, and so she stayed, smiled when she was tired, laughed when she wanted to sleep. One night, after yet another small scene, this time she was just girl who screams in market. She sat with Funke outside the hall while Shade flirted near the director's car. Simi stared at the reflection of herself in a dusty car window. Her makeup was cracked. Her eyes looked older than her age. Funke nudged her. "You are doing well, Simi. Just keep following our lead. Don't dull. Lagos doesn't wait for slow people." Simi didn't answer. She just nodded, but inside her chest, something felt tight. A knot she didn't know how to name. Still, she told herself, whatever it takes, I'm climbing. I just hope my feet holds. The invitation came on a Wednesday evening, handed to Shade by a man in sunglasses who barely looked Simi's way. She was sitting on a low cement bench outside the audition hall, rubbing the sole of her foot where a cheap sandal had pinched it raw. Shade waved the card at her like a fan. "Tonight, Alausa, big boys party, plenty connection. You must come." Simi hesitated. "Party again? I'm tired, Shade. I have to be up early for that market scene tomorrow." Shade rolled her eyes so hard it almost made Simi laugh. "Market scene? Abeg, forget that waka pass nonsense. Real roles come from real people. You think big actresses sit at home? Now who them know they call? If you want to climb, you must show face." And Lara flanked her, all wearing the same sly smile. Simi looked at their painted nails, shiny earrings, the way they moved through crowds like they owned every room, and for a moment, she wanted it too, wanted it badly enough to swallow the knot in her throat. So that night, she sat on a borrowed mattress while Funke shaped her brows and Shade rummaged through a pile of tight dresses. "This one," Shade said, pulling out a shining black gown that looked too small. Body must show, you are still fresh, use it. Simi turned away as she changed. The dress clung to her hips in a way that made her cheeks burn, but when she caught her reflection, lashes brushed up, lips with shining gloss, she almost didn't recognize herself. They squeezed into a small Uber together, 4 girls, pressed tight, perfume fighting for hair. The driver whistled low when he saw them. Una go scatter ground tonight though, he joked. Nobody laughed. They were too busy reapplying lipsticks and adjusting wigs. Alausa was alive when they arrived. Streets, lights everywhere, music spilling into the streets, big cars parked carelessly, men in crepes, agbada, and expensive watches lingering by the gate, eyeing every girl who walked in. Inside the compound was even louder. A DJ's voice cut through pounding beats. People danced, posed for phone cameras, laughed too hard at jokes Simi didn't hear. She stuck close to Funke at first, clutching a tiny borrowed purse like it would protect her. But soon, Sade disappeared into swirls of bodies. Lara was by the bar talking to a man old enough to be her uncle, and Funke drifted off to greet someone with cold drinks on every finger. Simi stood there alone near the fence, her eyes darting. A tray passed her, small chops, tiny meat piles. She hadn't eaten since morning, but her throat felt too tight to swallow. A voice startled her. Why so shy, fine girl? She turned. A man in a velvet shirt, his smile wild and his teeth too white. He smelled of strong cologne and whiskey. He asked her name before she could remember to lie. Simi, she said, her voice small. Simi, Simi, pretty name. You act, Abby. She nodded. He stepped closer. Good. I like fresh faces. I'll make things happen. Let's talk inside. Her stomach flipped. She looked around for Sade or Funke but couldn't see them. The man's hand was already at her elbow, guiding her towards the inner lounge. Inside, the music was softer, the lights dimmer, posh chairs, expensive bottles. 2 other girls laughed in a corner, their voice edged with something Simi couldn't name. He poured her a drink before she could say no. Relax now. You want to blow, don't you? Simi held the glass but didn't sip. Her eyes stayed on his, too steady, too knowing. In that moment, she heard her mother's voice in her head. Not all that shines is yours to carry. She thought of the pepper stall, the small room back in Ibadan. She thought of Sade's laugh, Funke's sharp eyes, Laura's silence. She set the glass down. I need fresh air, she said. He frowned but let her go. Outside, she pushed past bodies and the music that felt too loud now. She found a corner near the gate, her breath catching. Funke found her there minutes later, tipsy, her wig askew. Why you dey hide? If it help you, you know. Just small thing, you go thank us later. Simi didn't answer. She shook her head. She didn't know yet how to say it, but something inside her knew. She would climb, but not like this. She would find another way. After that night in Alausa, Simi stayed away from calls for a while. Sade called her twice. Funke left voice notes full of East advice, but Simi didn't reply. She shut off her small phone and focused on the scraps of works she could still find, small parts, crowd scenes, auditions where no one knew her name. Some nights, she would lie awake staring at the ceiling fan that never turned. Lagos felt bigger than ever, its bright light mocking her little ambition. But each morning, she would tell herself, small by small, brick by brick, better small and clean than big and lost. One afternoon, just as she was about to slip into another sweaty audition hall, her phone buzzed. It was a neighbor from Ibadan, Mama's friend, Yakudirat. Simi, where you dey? Your mama dey sick oo. Simi's hand went cold. Sick? How? What happened? Since last week, this malaria no dey leave her body. Your papa say she no wan go hospital. Money no dey. Simi's eyes burned. She pressed the phone to her ear so it's hot. I'm coming. Tell her I'm coming. That night, she packed her small bag, squeezed her money together, small savings from the waka pass rows, the market scenes. She paid her rent halfway so the caretaker won't scatter her things while she was gone. At dawn, she boarded an old bus at Ojota, just as she had few months before. This time, Lagos felt like it was pushing her away, whispering, go back home. Who are you fooling here? She reached Ibadan by noon. The road was dry, brown dust swirling behind the tires. Her old compound looked exactly the same, the faded gate hanging on 1 inch, the neighbors' children playing bare feet in the yard. Inside, Mama laid cord on a rafa mat, a damp cloth on her forehead. Her breath was soft but broken. She opened her eyes when Simi's shadow fell across the hallway. Simi me. Her voice was weak, but her eyes shone. Same stubbornness brightness that Simi carried too. Simi knelt beside her, pressing her mother's hand to her cheek. I'm here, Mama. I'll take you to the clinic. I have small money. You'll be fine. Her father stood in the corner, arms folded, face hard. He didn't speak, just watched Simi like he was trying to read the truth in her eyes. That evening, Simi paid for medicine, begged a nurse to come home to check her mother's drip. She sat awake all night on a small stool, fanning Mama's warm face, wiping sweat from her neck. In the darkness, Simi thought of the city, the half-finished dreams waiting for her there. She wondered if she had done the right thing by leaving, if she was truly strong enough to stay. In the early hours, Mama stirred. She opened her eyes again, stronger now, voice clear but soft. Simi, my daughter, the road you are on, be careful. Simi tried to smile. I'm careful, Mama. I'm trying my best. Mama squeezed her hand, her palm warm but thin. Don't sell your name for small fame. If you must climb, climb with your head, not your nails. Simi looked at her mother's tired face, the lines carved by worry, the softness of her hair tied back with an old scarf. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I promise. She stayed 3 more days, watching her mother's strength turn spoon by spoon, prayer by prayer. She cleaned the small room, helped Kudirat in the market for extra money, kissed Mama's cheek each time her eyes fluttered open. When it was time to go back to Lagos, her father walked her to the bus park in silence. He didn't hug her, but just before she climbed into the rickety bus, he touched her elbow and muttered, "Be wise, Simi." She didn't answer. She just nodded, clutching a nylon bag, the smell of peppers and camphor still lingering to her scarf. As the bus pulled out of Ibadan, back to the city where her name was still too small for big billboards, Simi pressed her forehead to the dusty windows and whispered to herself, I will climb, but I won't forget who I am. When Simi returned to Lagos, the city felt different. Maybe it was her. Something in her chest a little stronger, a little more stubborn than before. Or maybe it was the way the old caretaker nodded at her when she dropped her bag in her tiny room, as if to say, you are still here. Good. She didn't have time to rest. That same week, Shade showed up at her hostel door without warning, her perfume arriving before her knock. Simi, you have disappeared though. You think your name will grow on its own? She said, flopping down on Simi's small bed, her phone buzzing in her hand. Simi smiled politely, trying to hide her tiredness. I went home. My mom. Shade waved her off. Family will always be there. Rose won't wait for you. She leaned closer, dropping her voice like someone offering forbidden fruit. Listen, a small film is shooting this month. Big director, one of the main actresses pulled out last minute. Wahala with her sugar daddy or something. They are looking for a replacement. Fresh face, someone who can act and will not complain too much. I told Funke you fit the bill. Simi's chest thudded. A real role, speaking lines. Shade laughed, flickering invisible dust off her jeans. More than lines, scenes. You being in front of camera for real, but you have to come tonight for reading. Dress nice, smile plenty. I will send you the address. The audition room was nothing like the dusty odds she had grown used to. This was a small lounge in Victoria Island, air-conditioned, the chairs soft, the walls lined with framed posters of old blockbusters. Simi's felt underdressed in her plain blouse and simple braid, but she kept her chin up. When it was her turn, she stepped forward. The director, a lean man in a simple shirt, walked her over the top of his glasses. He didn't smile or wave envelope like the others. He just nodded once. What is your name? Simi, sir. He slid a script across the table. Read page 7 from the top. Simi took the paper, her arms sweating. She cleared her throat, forced her voice steady, and began. The room disappeared when she spoke. The lines weren't just words. They were the truth she carried from her mother's pepper store, the nights on the bus, the stale hostel room. Every sentence was a piece of her life turned to sound. When she finished, there was silence. Then the director looked at her, eyes narrow but kind. Can you come tomorrow for a screen test? Simi's heart leaped. She nodded too fast. Words stuck in her throat. Outside the building, the city's lights flickered like tiny promises. Shade was waiting by the car, scrolling her phone. She glanced up, reading Simi's face in one quick sweep. They like you, Abi. You see, I told you, stick with me. But Simi barely heard her. For the first time in months, her chest felt light. She walked home under the street lamp, ignoring the calls from motorbikes, the tired jokes from bus conductors. When she reached her room, she shut the door, leaned against it, and then let out a breath that carried weeks of doubt. Then she whispered to herself, Mama, shey you see, small by small. The next week was a blur. Wardrobe fittings, makeup tests, long rehearsals under harsh lights. Some nights She stumbled home so tired she fell asleep while wearing her stage earrings. On the first day on set, Simi stood before the camera, her face powdered, her costume neat. She spoke her lines clearly. The crew barely looked at her at first. She was just the new girl. But by the third scene, the lighting man gave her a small thumbs up when she hit her mark. The makeup artist said, "You get natural face for camera." There were small things, but to Sidi, they were huge. She would stand in the bathroom later, splashing cold water on her face, repeating to herself, "You get face for camera, you belong here." After one late shoot, she found a corner on set to rest her feet. She checked her phone, a small cheap tin with cracked screen. One new message from home. "Mama say she dey fine. Papa say make you call am. We dey pray for you." Simi smiled into the empty hall, her eyelids heavy. She curled up on a spare chair, clutching her bag to her chest. For the first time in Lagos, she felt it, not just the dream, but the road beneath it. Real, rough, but hers. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm climbing, and this time my feet will hold." Simi's name began to float through the small corners of the industry, carried on whispers that sounded sweeter than the truth. The small film, Market Women, wasn't big budget, but it had legs, a good story, a decent crew, and a hungry new face that everyone called that Simi girl. After the premiere, people started adding her on WhatsApp. Directors she had never met dropped short messages. "Hey, I heard about you. Let's talk." Small magazines begged for tiny interviews, 3 questions, cheap photos under harsh studio lights. For the first time, she could afford a new pair of sandals, not the market kind, but soft, fake leather that didn't bite her heels raw. She walked differently in them, shoulders pushed back just a little. Some days, when she sat by the window in her cramped hostel room, she would run her fingers along the edges of the small mirror Funke had once left behind. She would see her reflection and whisper, small by small. But Lagos is Lagos, sugar and pepper in the same spoon. One afternoon, after a sweaty shoot at an old compound in Ikeja, Simi sat under a mango tree with Lara. Funke hovered nearby, powdered and nose with short, rough strokes. Shade arrived late, sunglasses on, loud perfume cutting through the stale air. She barely looked at Simi. Instead, she launched into gossip about another actress who had snagged a billboard advert. She thinks she's big now. Wait till they chew her and spit her out like granite chaff. Simi only smiled, half listening. She had bigger worries, memorizing tomorrow lines, fixing her wig, keeping her name clean. Shade turned to her, voice soft but sharp underneath. "You are getting proud, Simi. We made you. Don't forget, when you are smiling for cameras, remember who opened the door." Funke laughed. "Shade leave her. Na small frame dey sweet her now. Soon she go run back to us when dem block her road." Simi felt the words shrink under her ribs like tiny stones. She wanted to say, "I didn't forget," but her throat closed through it, so she just sat there, fingers picking at her skirt, eyes fixed on the mango leaves dancing above them. The gossip didn't stop with her friends. On set, Simi noticed how some girls stared too long when she passed, Crew members whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. She found her name mixed into cheap online blogs, half true, half twisted. New face Simi spotted living with producer. It wasn't true. She knew it, but Lagos didn't care. One night, alone in her hostel, her phone buzzed with a private message from an unknown number. Play the game well, or they'll finish you faster than you came up. No name, no warning, just that. She sat awake that night, listening to the fan squeak. Her mother's voice floated back to her. Climb with your head, not your nails. She pressed her palms together and whispered a short prayer, not for fame, but for wisdom. The next day on set, the director pulled her aside. He was young, fair-skinned, with a fake American accent that sometimes disappeared when he got angry. Simi, you are good, but you have to understand, the world you are stepping into is not a church. Watch your friends, watch the gifts people offer you. Use your head. She nodded, feeling his hands linger a bit too long on her shoulder before he turned away. As the lights came on and the camera rolled again, Simi found her mark, lifted her chin and spoke her lines with steady eyes. But inside, a quiet fear hummed under her ribs, the same fear that made her hug her small purse tighter when she walked home late. She wasn't a star yet, just a girl climbing too fast, trying not to sleep. It was Sade, of course, who brought the news just as she always did when something big was too heavy to keep to herself. Simi was waiting outside a dinging editing suite in Yaba, script pages folded under her arms, when Sade's perfume announced her before her voice did. She plopped herself through Simi, scrolling her phone like she owned the world. Guess who they want for Daughter of the Lion? She asked, eyes darting sideways. Simi frowned. I don't know. You? Sade laughed, too loud for the small corridor. Me care, I beg. They want you, sidi. The words sat in the air, warm and sticky. Sidi shifted on the bench, a bag pressed into her side. You are joking. Do I look like a joke? Sade turned her phone to show her a short message read, a casting director, a few voice notes, the words fresh face, new fire under Sidi's name. Sidi's throat tightened. But how? Why me? Sade rolled her eyes. Don't ask foolish questions. The producer seen your market clips. You fit the village girl role. They want real. They think you are real. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. But you know now, Lagos no be free. You must show you are loyal. That evening, Sidi found herself in a silk hotel lobby in Victoria Island, too cold with AC, too bright with fake smiles. Sade's voice rang in her head. Dress well, smile soft, don't talk too much, let them see you want it. Upstairs, in a suite that smelled of stale whiskey and strong cologne, Sidi sat on the edge of a velvet chair. Her palm rested on her knees so she wouldn't fidget. The producer sat across from her, older with a small eyes that barely blinked. He flipped through her file without really reading it. You are good. You are fresh. I like that. Sidi smiled politely, her chest tight. Thank you, sir. He set the folder down, leaned forward so she could smell the sweetness on his breath. You know how this thing works, Abby. She swallowed. I'll work hard, sir. He rested his hands on hers. Dry, heavy. You get this role. You just have to show you are ready to be close. We'll take care of our own. Yeah. The words turned her stomach, but she held his gaze. 100 memories crowded her mind. Her mother's voice, Ibadan's dusty compound, The lights in her small room whispering whatever it takes to the cracked ceiling. She pulled her hand away, softly but firmly. I'm ready to work, sir. I'm not ready for anything else. His eyes narrowed. He laughed, not kindly. You girls think talent is enough. You think you are special. He snapped the folder shut, the sound sharp like an insult. She stood slowly. Her knees were shaking, but her voice stayed calm. Thank you for your time, sir. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. He didn't call after her as she stepped out into the bright cold hallway. The door clicked behind her, a small sound that felt like a gunshot in her chest. Outside, Sidi found Sade waiting by the lobby bar, swirling a straw in a half-finished cocktail. She took one look at Sidi's face and groaned. You didn't do that, did you? Sidi's voice was steady now. No. Sade sucked at it. So, now what? Who will fight for you? You think talent is enough? Lagos will chill you, Sidi. It will finish you. Sidi didn't answer. She just lifted her small bag onto her shoulder and stepped past Sade towards the glass door. As she pushed into the night, the city lights blurred for a moment. She felt a sob tighten in her chest, but she swallowed it down. Ahead of her, buses honked, hawkers shouted, the music of logos indifferent to her small stand. She walked to the roadside, found her old bus stop, and waited under the yellow street. Her phone buzzed once, Mama's name on the screen. Bisi stared at it, then answered, Mama, I'm fine. Yes, I'm eating. I'm okay. She looked up at the night sky, oily and heavy with fumes, and promised herself one more time, I'll climb, but not like that. Days passed slowly after she walked out of that hotel suite. Sidi half expected her phone to buzz with another offer, maybe an apology, maybe the same man calling her bluff. But Lagos doesn't beg, it just moves on. Sade didn't come around for a while. When she did, she only tossed Sidi a long, cold look across the yard outside the small hostel. No greetings, no jokes. Just that is of disappointment that scraped at Sidi's ribs. The audition just dried up for weeks. Funke stopped forwarding the group messages. Lara didn't bother with her late night gist anymore. The small girl's circle Sidi once clung to drifted away like smoke after a party. Sometimes she lay awake at night, the city's hum leaking through her window, the distant horns, the stray laughter, the hiss of a generator coughing itself to sleep. She wondered if she had made a mistake, if her mother's warning had turned her into a fool in a city that didn't care how good you were, only how far you'd bend. Every morning she still showed up, small roles, tiny sets, auditions where her name were never written down properly. Miss Busy, Bosse, Blessing. She had corrected them softly when she read her lines like she had the lead in a blockbuster. Then, on an afternoon so hot, it felt like the sun was pressing a palm into her neck. As Sidi got a call, it was an old producer from her very first audition. He remembered her for her eyes. He said, You don't beg too much with them. I like that. There was a small web series in the work, not big, tiny budget, short shoots, local crew, but it needed a art, someone who looked like she belonged in every scene without pretending. Come tomorrow, no promises, he said. She took 2 long buses and a keke to get there. The compound was cramped, the gate half hanging, the crew lounging on a cheap plastic chair. But the script, it was simple, honest. A campus story, 2 sisters, a lost scholarship, a quiet fight to keep their dreams alive. Sidi read for the younger sister. When she finished, the camera guy whispered to the director, who nodded once. Nobody clapped, nobody flattered her, but she felt it, the shift, like something small unlocking behind her ribs. That night, she sat at her hostel window, feet up on the metal railing, the air warm against her bare arms. Her old phone buzzed once. You got it. Be there 8 a.m. tomorrow. She pressed the message to her chest, breathing out a laugh so soft she startled herself. Mama's last word to her echoed again. Climb with your head, not your knees. There she was, knees scraped, but head still up. When she arrived at the first shoot the next morning, her hair was back tied neat, no borrowed wig, no borrowed smile either. She found her mark. She spoke her lines steady. Between takes, she sat under a tree, drinking sachet water, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. The bigger girls might have had prettier sets, shinier shoes, better food on set, but Sidi had somehow now had her own name, her own mouth to say it with. One scene at a time, she stitched herself back together. Each word on camera, each second someone called cut, proof that her dream didn't belong to someone's velvet suite. It belonged to her. The last episode of the small web series went live on a Wednesday morning, uploaded by the producer's cousin in a tiny internet cafe in Surulere. Bisi didn't even know it was out until her phone started buzzing in the middle of washing her clothes outside her hostel. The first message came from Lara, a short voice note that surprised her. Sidi, now you be this. You try you. Then Funke reposted a blurry clip on her status with the caption, See our girl. Even Sade, a proud Sade, who hadn't called her in weeks, sent a voice note laced with a reluctant laugh. So you dey blow now, abi? Small, sha. At first, Sadie didn't believe any of it. She wiped her soapy hands on her wrapper and squinted at this cracked phone screen, replaying her own face, saying lines she had nearly forgotten. It wasn't glossy, it wasn't fancy, but it was hers. Her voice, her eyes, her name spelled right in the credits. The next few days came at her like Lagos rain, sudden, heavy, and messy. Someone tagged her on Instagram. A micro-influencer posted a clip, New Girl to Watch. A tiny lifestyle blog asked for an interview. She didn't even have proper pictures to send them, just old selfies and a blurry behind-the-scenes snap, but still, they used them. One afternoon, while buying bread at the junction, a girl tapped her shoulder shyly. Auntie Sidi, she turned, startled. The girl joined wild. I watched you for that show. You dey act well, ma. Sidi laughed so hard she nearly forgot her change. Small shoots followed. A camon in a short film here, a voiceover gig there. The pay wasn't big, but it was clean. No hidden rooms, no half offers wrapped in sweet perfumes, just scripts, lights marked on the floor she learned to eat without trembling. The old friends drifted back too. Sade would call sometimes, voice soft like she had forgotten how sharp it used to be. Sidi, you dey set? Any rule fit remain for your girl. Sidi would laugh, promise nothing, and keep moving. And on nights when the shoot dragged too long, when the fake tears on camera stuck to her real ones off camera, Sidi would think of the hotel suite, the door she closed, and she would whisper to herself, This is my climb, mine. One Sunday afternoon, she went back to Ibadan for the first time in months, a surprise visit. She stepped down from the bus with a small nylon bag, no makeup, no fancy clothes, just sidi again. Mama sat on her mat, peeling egusi seeds, the small radio cracking news about Lagos roads, and one new movie that was trending online. When Mama saw her, she beamed so wild her cheek folded into dimples Sidi hadn't noticed in years. My Sidi, you are shining now, Abi. Sidi knelt to hug her mother, the smell of camphor and pepper soup clinging to her wrapper. Small, small, Mama, she whispered. I'm shining small, small. That night, as the compound quieted down and the neighbor's generator coughed itself into silence, Sidi laid on her old mat, staring at the same cracked ceiling she had left behind. Her phone buzzed beside her pillow, a new message, a new mention, new promise of bigger things to come. She ignored them for a moment, closed her eyes, listening instead to the cricket outside, Mama's soft snore, the warm Ibadan breeze on her feet. She let it remind her that the climb was never really about bright colors or billboard. It was about a girl who had chose her own way up, knees firm, head high, and a name that no one else could ever own.